Hello, and welcome back to Authentically Shauna. I'm your host, Dr. Shauna Burke. Today, I am joined by Dr. Aiden Seraphim, who is a doctor of Chinese medicine and a very well studied meditator. I have been taking a 4-week meditation course with him in his practice in Costa Mesa, California. So if we sound really zen, it's because we just meditated for 15 minutes. And I asked him to come on the podcast today to talk about meditation. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good
So
to be here.
tell me, what in your definition is meditation?
Goodness. Well, I think that depends on who you are and what your intention or goal is. But the way that I teach meditation is really based and focused on meditation as a tool to get to know oneself more deeply and to connect with your authentic self more deeply. And so I usually try to demystify meditation and some of the things that people, usually assume, which is, meditation is something that we do to stop our mind from thinking, to, control, like the way that our mind thinks and such, so on. But what I like to teach people is that the function of the mind is to think. You're really not ever going to stop that. Instead, it's more about making friends with your mind and learning how to work with, the thoughts that are constantly flowing through our minds, to become a witness and an observer of that process so that we then begin to have more spaciousness inside of ourselves so that we understand that we are not our thoughts and we disidentify with being the thought. And it really allows us to have a lot more agency and a lot more power in our ability to choose where we place our awareness.
Something that you had said, I think our first class, was we don't question why people shower their bodies, right? Because we get stinky and icky, but we very rarely question why we aren't doing the same thing for our mental body or our mind. Like, we never think about why we aren't cleaning and clearing that. That sort of gets disregarded. And that really stuck with me is, okay, well, I'm showering. So why am I not also doing something for my mind? Because I'm using that all day just as much as I'm using any other part of my body.
Yeah. I think that that's a really good point. I don't remember saying that, but I think that that analogy is great.
So tell me a little bit more about your training in meditation. What have you gleaned from different meditation practices, and how has that formed how you do meditation in your daily life?
So I was first introduced to meditation through the Shambhala meditation tradition and through the teachings of Pema Chodron. And so I learned meditation originally through open eyes, the whole notion that we are living in the world. So we want to be able to stay centered and aware within ourselves in the middle of within the midst of our lives, right? And so the meditation that I learned initially was shamatha vipassana meditation, which is basically just basic breath awareness meditation. So using the breath as the object of your meditation, and then learning how to train or work with your mind by identifying the thoughts as they arise. So you'll be connected to your breath, breathing in and out. You can choose which part of the breath that you are really putting most of your awareness on. And then as we do that, what's going to inevitably happen is that the mind is going to start thinking about something. And when that happens, we just simply notice. You can lightly tap it. You can identify it as just thinking and then let it go by returning to the breath. And so, what's really helpful in that type of meditation is really connecting with the sensation of the breath. In that sensation of feeling the breath in the body really helps to bring our awareness back into the present moment, which is why every time I start a meditation class or any type of meditation experience, I always start with having people close their eyes, come back to feeling their breath and feeling their body and using their breath as a anchor to call their awareness back into their body. And you really do that so powerfully when you connect with each part of the breath and the sensation of what that feels like as it's going through your nostrils, as it's filling every part of your lungs. And as you're exhaling, even the sensations of the muscles in your body as they relax and they let go. And it actually becomes a very pleasant and pleasurable experience when you connect with it that way.
So let's connect two ideas. How does traditional Chinese medicine and meditation go together?
Wow. So my understanding is that, back in classical Chinese medicine days, they actually had patients use their breath and meditation techniques as they were lying on the table to connect with the sensation of energy as it began to connect and move throughout the body, and that really helped to amplify the experience and the benefit of the treatment. I think that we've come really pretty far away from that in more modern times, but back then, like using the breath and your awareness and, meditation in that way was like a key part of the treatment itself.
And why do you think we stepped away from?
I don't know. I think that as, Chinese medicine became more westernized, it started moving further away from its more energetic, heart centered roots that were very mind body connected into more of a treatment protocol type of thing. So, more of like, you have this disease, these are the specific points that you use to treat that disease. And so it became more mechanical in that way, I guess you could say, and less tied to the heart of the medicine.
So, in your practice, how do you incorporate meditation into your acupuncture?
Well, I feel like I always am asking people to connect with their body and their breath and asking them about the sensations that they're experiencing, what they're noticing, what kind of shifts that they feel or sense. And just like trying to bring that mind body connection through, the awareness. Most of us spend very little time, I feel like, in our lives connected, like really connected and aware of our bodies. I know that I have spent most of my life very disembodied, very much in my mind, using my mind as like a tool for giving me significance or meaning or value. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the mind at all, but I think that we live in a world that is very much driven by the mind as like the the most important, the most valued aspect of our being. And that has become very disconnected from the heart and from the body.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it creates all kinds of disharmonies, not only like within our physical bodies, but within our emotional experiences and realities, within our relationships, within, like our experience of the world and others, because we lose that deep, authentic connection to our humanity. When you are in your body, connected with your heart, and your mind is an ally instead of the boss, it's a very different experience.
If you don't mind sharing, what do you think you've learned about yourself by practicing meditation for years?
I think that I have learned the biggest thing that I have learned is that there's nothing wrong with me. For a long time, I used meditation as a way of trying to fix something that I thought was wrong with me, or meditation as a way of trying to become a better person, like more spiritual, all of those things. And actually, through the practice of doing meditation regularly, I have been able to sit with and see all of the different parts of myself the parts of myself that that I like, that I think are, you know, worthy and good and noble. And then I've also been able to see the parts of myself that I don't like, that I think are shameful and unwanted and embarrassing. And through that practice of returning over and over again and just being with all of it, no matter what, I guess what I've discovered the most is that all of it is okay. And like, there's nothing to be fixed, really. It's more about an experience of acceptance and like learning how to embrace all of it.
So, if you had a magic wand and could transform how our society views meditation, what would you want the world to know?
It's not so hard. I think so many people don't even try because they maybe have had one experience with it and they have the idea that meditation is about, getting their mind to stop thinking and, experiencing this state of absolute bliss, and because they didn't have that experience on the first try, they think that they suck or that they're a failure at meditation or that meditation is just not for them or that it takes too much time, it's too much effort, it's too hard. And I would say that what I would hope that people would know is that, meditation doesn't have to be some, complicated technique that you're using. Meditation is as simple as connecting with your breath and just feeling it. Noticing that your breath actually has four parts to it and slowing down and like allowing yourself to connect to each one of those parts and feel your body in that process. That can be meditation.
Yeah.
That's not hard.
No.
I mean, it can be difficult for people who have a lot of trauma or experiences in their lives that have made them feel like their body is not a safe place.
Yes.
But even then, like, there's ways of doing it where, also I think a misconception is it's like, oh, you have to do this really long thing. You got to go, you got to sit and you're sitting for like hours at a time, or, like even, you got to sit for like 30 minutes or, and that can be really overwhelming. But if you realize that you can start with like 1 minute with a safe person that you trust, like feeling them there with you as you, maybe place your hand on your heart and you just allow yourself to connect with your breath and your body for 1 minute. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's enormous. And then you just start over time to slowly build more trust and more resiliency inside. And then it starts to feel safer and safer to be in your body because you realize that while maybe things have happened to us that were outside of our control at some point in our lives, that right now in this moment, here and now, we are in control. We are choosing how we're going to live this experience right now in this moment. And that can be incredibly empowering because all that power that felt like it was taken from us, we have the capacity to take back. But that only happens when we come home and we stop running. Because, in my opinion and in my experience, empowerment, healing, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, all those things happen in the context of embodiment. They can't happen outside of embodiment. We are born in this world, I believe, as spiritual beings in this physical vehicle, which is a body. And I feel like that's for a reason, to bring these two forces together, to harmonize these two forces, to learn how to live with both of them. Because otherwise, why on earth would we need to have a body? Because in my belief, in my opinion, we're spiritual beings. We're energetic spiritual beings that have existed in other transforms in other realms because energy can't be created or destroyed. It just is transformed. And so, like, there's a reason that we've manifested here in these meat suits or these bodies, right? So, in my opinion, it is to learn how to, like, make friends with this experience of having these two opposing realities, like this very material, physical, heavy, difficult,
Dense.
dense reality, and this very light, like free, expansive, creative, beautiful energy. It's the yin and the yang. This is why what we're talking about is really Chinese medicine. You had asked me at the beginning, though. I didn't get a chance to go through it. And really quick, I won't go in depth.
No,
But you
please.
asked me like the journey of my meditation.
Yes.
And I started off with Shambhala meditation. And then I did a Vipassana meditation retreat. And then,
And explain what that is.
so 10 days, you go someplace where you give somebody your keys in your phone and you receive instruction on the first night. And then you're told that from that point forward, you are to not speak with anyone. And you are to keep your gaze and your focus inward. And then we sit during the course of that 10 days for about 8 to 12 hours a day. You're not allowed to have books or other entertainment things. It's all about it's really about coming to know yourself, seeing yourself clearly without any distractions. And in that, it's like a much more intense, rigorous form of meditation. So in that type of meditation, you are supposed to sit without moving, even if you feel pain or discomfort in your body, because what you will discover, and I can attest to this, is that if you stay with it and you open to the discomfort and the pain without resistance, it will transform and shift.
I'm working on that. Yeah, absolutely.
And then after that, I have spent the rest of my time practicing Buddhist, or actually, I have done some Tibetan Buddhist practice, but also a tantric Hindu practice, Kundalini meditation based with circulation of the breath and the energy through the microcosmic orbit of the body, which is really, really transformative.
And it sounds a lot like Chinese medicine.
Yeah, if you're dealing with the microcosmic orbit, yeah.
Just tell me why you gravitate towards that. So, what does your daily meditation practice look like?
So that has shifted a lot depending on where I'm at and what phase of my life I'm in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be, sit like when I lived in a ashram for several years. And so I would sit every day for at least an hour to maybe an hour and a half, a 30-minute morning practice and an hour evening practice. To, living on my own and being very dedicated and doing about 20 minutes every day, every morning. And then it's shifted. And now I actually really prefer to do my meditation practice at nighttime before I go to bed because I am writing a memoir. So my morning times, I like to wake up and write. It's when I feel inspired. So now before I go to bed, I will sit anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes at night before I go to bed.
Do you think that helps you fall asleep?
I think it can. Absolutely. Luckily, I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't really have a hard time falling asleep, but I do oftentimes recommend like breathing and meditation for people if they have a hard time going to sleep. And there's lots of apps that people like to listen to before they go to bed.
Absolutely. One other thing I wanted to touch on that we had talked about in today's practice was arriving and the concept that a lot of us are rushing around all the time and we never fully arrive in any place. Our energy is kind of scattered in lots of different places and we're thinking about the future and we're thinking about the past, what we need to do in 10 minutes and where we have to go, and this whole litany of things. And we just sat for 2 minutes and brought ourselves into the present moment. And I think that's a great place to start, is just being where your body is, which sounds so easy. And I think we do it very rarely.
100%, right? It seems like the most common sense thing in the world that everybody would be doing. But unfortunately, in my opinion, we live in a very dysfunctional world. And I really love the works of Gabor Mate and the book that he recently wrote called The Myth of Normal. And he talks about how, you know, our society is not normal,
Yeah.
even though we are taught that all of this is normal. But it's not conducive to cultivating the spirit. It's not conducive to nurturing and, encouraging connection and love and trust, just really basic human needs.
Tenets.
And so I think when that's the case and you're living like in a really crazy environment that is not conducive to your well-being, the natural tendency would be to try to get away. So I think the way people are responding is 100% normal.
Right.
It's like a frog that gets put into a pot of boiling water. The frog is going to try to jump out of the pot. It doesn't want to stay there unless the frog is in the water as it's warming up. And so it doesn't realize that it's being boiled alive until it's too late. And I think that that's kind of the spell that we all have been under. And so I think that that simple practice of arriving somewhere is so powerful and so profound. There's so many forces that are vying for our attention. And our attention is the most valuable commodity that is out there. You know, but when we just give our attention and our awareness to anything, we lose our power, right? And I think that's why so many of us are living like very confused and we don't really know what's going on. I mean, I feel like it's easy to become confused with the state of the world today and how things are. But by, simply when you sit or you arrive somewhere, connecting with your breath, using your breath to help call your awareness back into your body, and pulling that in with each inhale, bringing that awareness into the present moment, beginning to smell the smells that are in the room, beginning to hear the sounds that are in the room, just becoming very present with where you're at is super powerful, because then you realize in that moment, and you can grow those moments, that you actually have the capacity to choose where you place your awareness. And like we talked about at the end of our meditation today, most of us are living at the end of the pendulum, holding on for dear life and being swung in every direction. And, through this practice of, bringing yourself present over and over again, you can train yourself to move from the end of the pendulum to the fulcrum point, where you're in the center and the pendulum is swinging back and forth around you, but you're not being moved.
You're the observer.
You're the observer.
Absolutely. Is there anything that I've missed or not asked that you want to share?
I don't think so.
We did it then.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I'm borrowing Lauren Bostick's statement. She says, pimp yourself out. So how can people find you? How can people work with you? When are you holding your next meditation class? If someone wants to come and join, you can do it virtual or in person.
Yes. So probably the best places to find me are on my website.
Okay. I'll link that.
heartcenteracu.com. You could also follow me on Instagram at heartcenteracu. And then as far as the next meditation, it's going to be sometime in January, but I have a newsletter. So if you go to my website, I believe that there is a place on my website where you can sign up for my newsletter, or you can just reach out to me on Instagram with your email and I can add you to my newsletter. But I always send out announcements about the next meditation classes that I'm offering. And then I also have been offering something that I'm very excited about, which are my monthly community events. They each time have a different theme. So far we have done poetry night, community and poetry. We have done a prayers for peace one, which was particularly powerful, I feel like, after the election. It was about bringing people together to realize that as we went around in the room and shared about our intentions for peace within our own lives and for the world, everybody just felt so connected to each person that was sharing and resonated with like something about what each person was sharing. And then we didn't share anything about our political affiliation, but I can guarantee you that if we had gone around the room and asked how each person in the room had voted, we would have had people from all spectrums of the political arena, you know? And so I think it just goes to show that, like, we have so much more in common than we know, than
Yeah.
we acknowledge. I think at the heart of it, we essentially want the same things. We just are being manipulated, I think, by forces that are trying to get us to hate each other.
It's the pendulum.
And those things aren't true at the heart of it. They're not true. It's the noise of this mind that is like has fear and, you know,
Doubt.
separation, doubt, and all of that stuff, that the stories that we tell ourselves, those are all just fabrications of our mind. There's a much deeper reality beyond that, which is like the essence of who we are. And I believe that that essence is much more similar than we think. And that, my hope in these, community events is that we can make connections with people who are different from us, that have different ideas, that have different beliefs, and that we can share our different opinions and beliefs in an atmosphere that is loving and accepting, and that we're able to hear each other and allow the differences, and allow there to be respect even if we don't agree. Like, we can still love and we can still respect and honor one another even if we don't agree. That's something that has been lost,
Agreed.
and I think that we need to find it again.
Yeah. Well, I'll be at the next one. I was at the last one. It was great. I'm so glad I got to come and experience that. So I can't wait for the next iteration of that. So I will link Aiden's information in our show notes. I want to make an announcement. We're both traveling, not together, but we're both going to Europe. I'm doing a Christmas river cruise with my mom. So there won't be any podcasts the first 2 weeks of December. And then I'm going to record little mini podcasts with my mom on our trip in case anyone ever wants to know what a Christmas river cruise is like, or the Christmas markets in Germany. That will be the next set. And then come back in January and we'll have some more interviews. You have been listening to Authentically Shauna with Dr. Shauna Burke. The information contained in this podcast is provided for information purposes only and is not intended for the purposes of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products or techniques referenced in this podcast, consult your healthcare provider. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interests in products or services referred to herein.